Hello, you're playing The Waiting Game, the video game recommendation show. This week, if you really reap what you sow, we're gonna need a new gardener. Yes, Diablo III Reaper of Souls, the first bit of DLC for Blizzard's dungeon crawler, is rapidly approaching. It's launching in March, to be precise. The plot centers around the Black Soul Stone, which Malthael, the Angel of Death, plans to steal, using it for all kinds of evil. It's down to you to stop this moderately nefarious plan from coming to fruition, so what's the best way to get ready? I'll tell you. Well, if you're looking for a tale of one person taking on the forces of evil, you can't get much better than Dante's Inferno. That's the third-person slaughter game, by the way, not Dante's epic poem, though that is in itself pretty great. In the game version, Dante is less a wandering poet and more of a brutal warrior sent to rescue his love by murdering everything. With a strong focus on hack-and-slash mechanics, it's not as much of a methodical dungeon crawler as Diablo III, but it's a pretty underrated game, one you can romp through pretty quickly, just in time for Reaper of Souls. Of course, lone heroes have been taking on nearly insurmountable evils for thousands of years now, and if you really want to get ready for Reaper of Souls, you should check out one of the first. Beowulf is a wonderful poem written sometime between the 8th and 11th centuries. It's also a film starring Ray Winstone, but if you dare watch that, I will pull my head off and bowl it at you. Seriously, it's atrocious.
I am Ripper, Tearer, Slasher, Gouger. I am the teeth in the darkness, the talons in the night. Mine is strength and lust and power. I am Beowulf!
Anyway, Beowulf tells the story of the Geats, a group of Scandinavian warriors being terrorized by the monstrous Grendel. The eponymous warrior Beowulf arrives to lend his aid, and the action goes from there. I won't spoil the rest, but rest assured it's a tremendous work of fiction. I wrote my dissertation on it, actually. Anyway, unless you can understand the original Anglo-Saxon, you'll need to read it in translation. The Seamus Heaney rendering is probably the most popular, though personally I prefer the translation done by Kevin Crossley Holland. Oh, look at me, aren't I pretentious? Now, while Beowulf is fantastic, I recognise Anglo-Saxon poetry might not exactly be for everyone. Maybe you want something a bit more light-hearted to get ready for the Diablo DLC. Don't worry, we've got you covered.
And on to this Conan, destined to bear the jeweled crown of Aquilonia upon a troubled brow.
Conan the Barbarian tells the story of a barbarian named Conan. He's looking to exact his revenge on the evil wizard who killed his family years before. Conan is a bloody romp the likes of which only the 1980s could possibly produce, featuring some hugely over-the-top set pieces and some incredibly quotable dialogue.
Conan, what is best in life? Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
To be honest, if you go into Diablo III Reaper of Souls without at least one Arnie movie behind you, then you really have my pity. Speaking of Conan the Barbarian, our next recommendation was very heavily influenced by Arnie's sweaty escapades, leading to a game that's just about as iconic. I am talking, of course, about Golden Axe. Set in the land of Uria, Golden Axe follows three warriors on a quest to kill the evil Death Adder and free their king from captivity. The side-scrolling Sega Genesis game became an instant classic when it was released over 20 years ago, and if you want a challenging hack-and-slash game to warm you up for Reaper of Souls, you'd be hard-pressed to do better. Just don't let the rather questionable box art put you off. And finally, in this demonic debacle, we've got one more game to get you ready for Diablo III Reaper of Souls, and that's Diablo II. No, really. Yeah, I know, we try not to mention previous games in the series too often, but there's a very good reason for it this time round. Doubtless you're aware that Diablo III had a rather mixed reception when it initially launched. A lot of people seem to think the gameplay had wandered off course somewhat and didn't clutch the new release to their hearts as dearly as they did Diablo II. The whole point of the Reaper of Souls DLC then is to re-inject the style of gameplay everyone loved in Diablo 2, bringing the franchise back to the form that won people over in the first place. The new zone is much darker, the loot drops have been reconfigured, and the Crusader is also quite like the Paladin everyone loved in Diablo 2. So to get yourself ready for those challenges, refamiliarising yourself with the previous iteration is a pretty sound tactic. And with that, I'm off. As ever, if you want to have a closer look at any of the items we talked up in this episode, follow the link on screen now for an Amazon list. The waiting game will return next week, but sadly, I won't. This is my last episode in charge of the waiting game as I'm going on to new things, but rest assured you'll be in good hands when Seb takes over in the next episode. Don't forget to make your own recommendations in a comment or by tweeting with the hashtag GSWaitingGame. It's been a pleasure. Farewell.